Welcome to this next session of Programming for Problem Solving. The topic for the day is switch statement. Now, what is a switch statement? Switch statement comes under the category of conditional statements. The switch statement allows us to execute one code block among many alternatives. The code blocks are mutually exclusive of each other. You can do the same thing with the if-else, if ladder as well. However, the syntax of the switch statement is much easier to read and write. So what is a switch statement? Basically, when you have a large number of group of compound statements which are mutually exclusive of each other. Now, what do we understand by mutual exclusion of compound statements? That means all the statements, only one statement is true, or only one set of statements has to be executed. So the choice of that statement or the choice of that group of statement to be executed can be achieved with the help of switch statement. अगर आपके पास एक ऑल्टरनेटिव, बहुत सारे ऑल्टरनेटिव्स हैं ग्रुप ऑफ स्टेटमेंट्स के जिसमें से सिर्फ एक ही एग्जीक्यूट हो सकती है, तो उस चीज को अचीव करने के लिए हम लोग स्विच स्टेटमेंट को यूज करते हैं. स्विच स्टेटमेंट की जगह पर हम लोग इफ एल्स और इफ एल्स इफ लेटर भी यूज कर सकते हैं, लेकिन हम लोग स्विच स्टेटमेंट कई बार इसलिए प्रेफर करते हैं बिकॉज इट इज मच इजियर टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड इट हैज many other benefits as well. So let's have a look at how we use the switch statement and what are the different benefits that we can achieve and how it is different from the if statement. Advantages of the switch statement. अगर हमारे पास if statement already available है, then why are we opting for the switch statement? If we already have an if statement, why we are using the switch statement? So let us have a look into some of the advantages of the switch statement. Structure of the switch statement is easy to write and understand as compared to else if ladder. It executes faster than else if as the code can be customized by the compiler. If statement में जो structure होता है वो बहुत ही strict होता है. You cannot make any changes into that structure. If के बाद compound statements के बाद body आती है and then it is followed by the else statement. So else will stay where it is, if will stay where it is, and the compound statements will also stay where they are. So there will be no customization. But in case of switch statement, certain customizations can be done by the compiler at its own level to make the execution of the program a little faster. Order of the cases can be changed. Like I said, that the customization can be done by the compiler, and sometimes while you are writing the orders or writing the sequence of the switch statement, you can also make certain changes into that. It is not a very strict order like the if statement. What are the disadvantages of the switch statement? We cannot use two variables as expression. So in case of if statement, what happens is if A is equals to 1 or B is equals to 2, so we are basically using A is equals to B. So more than one, you can say, expression can be used, or more than one variable or a constant can be used. But in case of switch statement, that is not allowed. Only one variable or an expression can be used. We cannot use relational expressions. जैसा कि बताया गया है कि जब हम लोग if statement को use करते हैं, then sometimes we need to check whether A is greater than B or not. No such relational operators are allowed in the switch statement. Only and only the constant values can be passed. No use of relational operators. Only int and character values can be used in expression. Float values are not allowed. Only integer values are allowed. Even if you are using the characters, then those characters are basically converted into their ASCII value, and their integer ASCII value is used as a constant. So only and only the integer values are allowed. In case you use the float, then the floats are also converted into integer, and only the integer value is then evaluated. So this is another limitation of the switch statement. So broadly, a switch statement uses the integer constant value of a single variable as expression. This is the syntax of a switch statement. It starts with the keyword switch followed by an expression. Now, what is this expression? Like if you visit the previous slide, an expression can be an integer constant value. So basically we are using an expression like a variable a. Now you can only pass a as a single expression. You cannot pass two variables. So you can pass any integer expression as a argument. Now next, inside the body of the switch statement, you have different cases written inside it. Now use of the keyword case followed by the value. What is this value? This is the actual constant integer value. So after giving the value, it is followed by the semicolon. After the semicolon, you can use a group of compound statements which will be executed only if the value is true. And after this set of compound statements, it is mandatory to use the break statement before the next case can be written. Why it is mandatory? It has been explained in the next slides. Now, what after the break statement? You have the case value 2. Now, when will the case value 2 will be executed? Only if the case value 1 is false. If the case value 1 is false, the case value 2 will be checked. If it is true, then the statements after that will be executed. And in case the value 2 is also false, we will check for the value 3. And if the value 3 is also false, we will check with the default. Now there was one property of the switch statement, that all the set of compound statements are mutually exclusive of each other. So in this syntax, you can see that there is one set of statements here, one set of statements here, the third set of statements here, and fourth set of statements here. All these four set of statements are mutually exclusive of each other. Only one of these will be executed, and which of these will be executed will depend upon the value of the expression. We will compare the value of this expression with the value 1. If it is true, then this set of statement will be executed. If it is false, then we will check the value of the expression with the value 2. If it is true, then this set of statement will be executed. So this is how the actual execution of the or the working of the switch statement takes place in case of C programming language. Things will be more clear once we have a look at the further slides and also see few examples. So let's move to the next slide. The role of break statement in switch. Now, like I said, that after every case, you have to use the break statement. If you do not use the break statement, what will happen? That all the compound statements after that case will be executed without checking the value of the cases. For example, let's have a look at this previous slide again and think that the break statement is not given. If the break statement is not given after every case, then if the case value 1 is true, then all the statements after the case value 1 will be executed. To explain it to you even more clearer, let us say that the value of the expression 1 matches with the value of the first case. That means expression is equals to value 1. Then this statement is sure to be executed. Now, if we haven't used the break statement, then the case value 2 will not be checked, and the statements after that, all these statements will be executed. So we need a break statement so that if the expression is equal to value 1, then after executing this set of statements, we can break from the switch control and come out of it. So the use of break statement is very important, and the things, like I said, will be more clearer when we see a few more examples. So the break statement after every case is given to exit the switch structure, and if not given, the statements inside all the succeeding cases will be executed without comparing the case values with the expression. Now this is a small example or a program to implement the concept of a calculator in C. You can see that the whole program has not been given, only the switch statement has been given. So the expression that has been passed in this particular switch statement is num, num. So there obviously the num must be carrying some value. Now let us compare the value of the num expression with the first case. The value of the first case is 1. Now if the value of num is equal to 1, then the addition will be performed. Then the value of C will become A plus B. Now if the value of num is not equal to 1, then we check with the value of the second case. If the value of num is equal to 2, we will perform the subtraction. If the value of num is 3, then we will perform the multiplication. If the value of num is 4, we will perform the division. Now in case the value of num is not equal to 1, 2, 3 or 4, then the default will be executed. Now what is a default? Default is just like the else in the if else statement. If all the conditions are false, then we will execute the default part, which will say that you have given the wrong input. So this is a simple example in which you can see how the value of the expression is matched with every value of the different cases till we find one match. Once the match is found, then we execute the statement given inside that case, and we execute the break statement. Once the break statement is executed, we come out of the switch statement. Now in this case, if the value of the expression num is equal to 1, then we will execute this statement, that is C is equals to A plus B, and after that the break statement will be executed and we will come out of the switch statement. I hope this example is clear to you. Now we will move to the next slide. Now what will happen if we do not use the break statement? So this program is the same as the previous one, but the break statement is missing. So there is no break statement written after all the cases. Now what will happen when we will execute this program? Now let us suppose that the value of the num expression is equal to 1. So that means the value of the variable num is equal to 1. If this case is true, then we are surely about to execute this statement, C is equals to A plus B. Now there is no break statement given in here, so that means this statement case 2 becomes irrelevant and C is equals to A minus B will be executed. Now again the break statement has not been used, that means this statement also becomes irrelevant and subsequently this statement will also be executed. Similarly, all other executable statements will be executed. So what will happen? First of all, C is equals to A plus B, C is equals to A minus B, C is equals to A multiplied B, C is equals to A divided by B, and printf wrong statement. All these statements will be executed in case the value of num is equals to 1. It only happened because we did not use the break statement after each case. So I hope it is clear how important the break statement is in case of the switch statement. Now moving to the next slide, like there was one property of the switch statement that you can change the order of the cases. Now the else part in the if else structure is always at the end. If you're using if else, then the if comes first and then the else. If you're using the if else if ladder, then the if condition 1, else if condition 2, else if condition 3, so on, and in the end you have else, and else never has a condition. Now generally what happens is the default is just like else, so it should be at the bottom. But as you can see in this example, the default has been placed somewhere here before the case 2, case 3 and case 4. Now default is just like else, as I have already told you, but it has been placed in the middle, which is allowed in case you are using the switch statement. So this will not generate any error and the program will work absolutely fine. So this is the same program that we have written in the, or we have seen in the previous slide. Now, what are the broad differences between the if statement and the switch statement? In case of switch statement, we are not allowed to use the relational operators and the logical operators like and or not. So we cannot use the relational operators like less than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than equal to, or not equal to. Further, you cannot also use the logical operators like and or or. So in case of if else, we can use these relational operators and the logical operators. The second major difference is that the order of cases and default case does not matter, whereas the order of else if ladder is very strict. The third difference is that the execution of the switch statement is much faster than the if else statement, because obviously the code is customizable. Fourth difference is the cases written in switch can only use constants in form of integer, and even if you want to use character, that will be converted into integer. Whereas in case of if else, there is no such restrictions, you can use any data type. And the last is the use of break statement is must after each case, whereas there is no such condition in if else if ladder. There is no need to use the break statement in the else if ladder. I hope you understood the basic differences between the switch statement and the if else statement. You also got to know the advantages and the preferences of the switch statement. You also got to know in which cases we cannot use the switch statement. Further, there was a discussion on the syntax and a couple of programs to use the switch statement. So in the next lecture, we will see how we can practically implement the switch statement through the practicals. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture. So in the next lecture, we will meet for to discuss a practical implementation of the switch statement. Thank you very much.